What is up, Packers fans? Welcome in to Pack a Day Happy Hour. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Hope your Friday is treating you well. Hope you are set for an epic weekend that includes a big Packers victory on Sunday. I really do think Green Bay is going to take care of business in this one, but this has been a bizarro year. So who the hell knows? We are presented today by Luiges Frozen Pizza. I don't know if you haven't done this, if you haven't gone out, if you're in an area that has Luiges pizzas and you haven't taken my word for it yet and gone and got the best frozen pizza in the industry, what the heck are you waiting for? Go get it. Go get your victory pizzas. We're going to be able to celebrate on Sunday. Pick your flavor of choice. This week, I'm going sausage and pepperoni. I'm going with the original. It's the absolute best, robust sauce, Wisconsin mozzarella, made in Wisconsin. What more do you want? Thank you to Luiges for sponsoring today's show. Check them out at luigespizza.com and on social media at Luiges Pizza. Got about an hour with you guys. I'll get to as many questions as I can over the course of the next hour. See, we've got a bunch of questions already lined up, so I will do my best to keep up. I see we've got a super chat in there as well. Appreciate that. Before we get there, quick update. We did just get the injury report for Sunday. Minnesota, really good news for them. They're very healthy going into this game. They have two players who are questionable. Their starting center, who is still in concussion protocol, who is questionable, but he has been a full participant the last 3 days. You got to think that there's a really good chance that he will play in this game. Then Jonathan Grenard, their star edge rusher, he did not participate on Wednesday, which was a simulated practice, not a real practice, just simulated estimation. And then he was limited the last 2 days on Thursday and Friday. So I would think that there's a good chance he plays as well. Those two are questionable. Everybody else is good to go for Minnesota. For Green Bay, of course, I'm kind of bearing the lead here. The really big news is Jayden Reed returned to practice today. So they opened up his 21-day window. It is not for this week. He is officially out for this game, as is Nate Hobbs. So Nate Hobbs and Jayden Reed out. But just real quick again, Jayden Reed did return to practice. I don't think this is going to be for Detroit. I think this is going to be for Chicago the following week. There's not going to be much practice ahead of Detroit. It's a road game. I have a feeling that Chicago game in a couple weeks is probably what they're eyeing up for Jayden Reed, but he and Nate Hobbs again officially out. Quay Walker is doubtful. That's definitely going to change up the calculus at the linebacker position. Isaiah McDuffie likely taking over the Mike spot, playing from, going from basically 10 to 15 snaps a game to basically every snap in this game. So that's going to be a big promotion for Isaiah McDuffie. Meanwhile, Tyron Hopper will take the usual 10 to 15 Isaiah McDuffie snaps. So keep an eye on that, but doubtful for Quay Walker. Questionable includes Carl Brooks, who did return to practice in a limited capacity on Friday, Matthew Golden, who was limited all week, Josh Jacobs, who was limited for the second consecutive day, Lucas Van Ness, who was limited, but Matt LaFleur did say the goal for him is to play this week, so good news there. Dontavian Wicks was limited all week, and then Savion Williams, who didn't practice Wednesday, limited Thursday, didn't practice Friday. We'll have to see if he's able to go in this one as well. But a lot of injury questions for Green Bay going into this game. That is your official injury report for this week. All right. That being said, let's get to all of your wonderful freaking questions. Let's start with our super chat, GABK. Andy, love the live streams. I'm worried Edgerrin Cooper might not be as good as I thought he would be. Can you reassure me or provide some hope? Well, I don't know how good you thought he was going to be. So if you thought he was going to be, one of the best linebackers of all time, then yeah, maybe it's coming a little bit underwhelming at that point. But a couple things. The first thing I would recommend is go and listen to Jeff Hafley from yesterday. He was asked about Edgerrin Cooper, and he was glowing about Coop. Now, to be fair, Hafley's glowing about just about everybody he talks about, but he was glowing about Coop and specifically saying he thinks he is far further along and much better this year than he was a year ago. I think the big thing is that they're just asking him to do different stuff. I do think for the most part, his attention to detail and his assignment sureness and those sort of things are better than they were, especially early in his career last year. I just think they're asking him to do different things. I don't think they're using him quite as much as an attacking presence. You'll see it from time to time. I actually think they can use a little bit more of that. But he's just he and Quay are really that second level of the defense. And with making sure you're not giving up explosives and only bringing 4, he and Quay are just, everything's kind of getting cycled to them and funneled to them to make sure that they're, getting those players down with immediacy and using their great speed to get all over the field. I think they've done a good job of it. If you look at what he's being asked to do, I think he's doing his job. For me, for my grades so far this year, I still have Edgerrin, graded as my third highest graded defender behind only Micah and Evan Williams. So I know Justice was maybe a little bit more down on Coop. I still view him very, very well. I think he's having a great season. And do I think maybe it was the jump that we were hoping for, meaning he was already going to be in like Pro Bowl and All Pro consideration? No, I don't think it's been that. I don't think it's necessarily any fault of his own, though, because I just think his role as being like basically the vacuum and, basically taking everything that is funneled to him and making sure that he gets those players to the ground. And quite frankly, I think he's doing a pretty good job of it. So no issues with the way he's playing at all. Most hated Chicagoan. Happy Friday, Andy. Hear me out. 2026 Packers Patriots Alliance can see a 6-0 run. No alliances. No, this is Philadelphia, Chicago Bears stuff. No alliance needed. Most hated Chicagoan. The Green Bay Packers speak of themselves on their own volition. We don't need help from anybody. We take care of business on our own. So no alliance is needed. I appreciate the thought, but no alliance on my side of things. Andy, maybe I'm off base here, but I would be very excited to see what our offense looks like without Jacobs. If he doesn't play, LaFleur and Love seem to excel when that is the case. I love Jacobs, by the way. Yeah, I mean, to me, they're two separate things. Josh Jacobs is really freaking good. He's having a really good season. I want Josh Jacobs out there. That shouldn't be a hot take. Do I think that Green Bay can and should focus a little bit more on Jordan Love than Josh Jacobs, even when Josh Jacobs is in there? Yes. But I would rather have them do that stuff that they do without Jacobs with him in the lineup. Just run the same stuff, but have Jacobs out there. So to me, this team is better with Jacob. Now, in obvious passing downs, we talked about this, Justice and I talked about this. I want Chris Brooks out there. I want Chris Brooks in obvious passing downs. That's no disrespect to Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is not a great pass protector. Chris Brooks is one of the best ones in the NFL. And if you're going to go on obvious passing downs, especially against a very blitz-heavy team like Minnesota, yeah, that's Chris Brooks' time. But outside of that, I want Jacobs out there. The offense needs to figure out a way to not even necessarily stay balanced, just run effectively and efficiently with him out there. And to me, that is the onus on Matt LaFleur, not on running now a different offense because Jacobs isn't there. No, let him be there, but run that style of offense. And now you've got another weapon in the backfield with him. So I just think they have to be a little bit smarter about how they're calling the game when Jacobs is in there. And maybe, again, not having him be quite as much of a focal point, mostly due to the fact that your offensive line from a run blocking standpoint isn't what you want it to be. Watching the Texans defense last night just has me thinking that the ceiling for this team is Super Bowl contender. How can we not capitalize on generating turnovers at some point? I do think they will. Now, to be fair, I don't think Green Bay's had a game defensively with like 8 sacks all season long like the Texans did yesterday. Texans were on one. They were phenomenal defensively. They're the league's best defense at the moment, in my opinion. Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. I think the disappointing thing is that, Hunter and Anderson, I think Green Bay feels like, hey, we have that. We've got Gary and Micah. We should be able to do the same thing. And it's what we've talked about all week with Rashawn Gary. Hopefully watching that game last night, ignites something in Rashawn Gary, assuming he watched it or at least is aware of it, of like, hey, that's what it could look like. Mike is doing his part. He's getting all the double teams and everything. Gary has to hold up, and so does Devontae Wyatt and the rest of that defensive line. Hopefully getting LVN back this week helps as well. But I want to see the defensive line have a dominant outing like that before I'm willing to put Green Bay in that same conversation of what we saw from Houston last night. Last question, I promise. When was the last time the Pack had a 20-plus yard touchdown pass or run? I love our explosive offense, but you would think a 55-yard touchdown to Watson or Golden would happen eventually. Yeah, I would ask you the flip side is Green Bay has not given up many of those 20-plus yard touchdown passes or runs either, right? That's just the NFL that we're living in right now. Teams are dead set on not allowing explosive plays. Now, that does not say that Green Bay shouldn't be doing it or that they shouldn't have done it by now. They should have, but it's become very, very difficult to get those type of plays. Green Bay's got to find a way to generate them. They've got to get more explosives. I think part of that is why they want to run the ball early to try to get defenses in situations. Why they're throwing on some of those 3rd and 2s to try to get that one-on-one coverage where maybe you can hit some of those explosives. But yeah, they have to find a way to get those. But again, we're living in a league right now where the number one thing defenses are trying to eliminate is giving up those explosive type of plays. But Green Bay still has to find a way to generate them nonetheless. Ralph, thank you for the super chat. So some are letting Goody slide because of the Micah trade. What other choice did he have? He hasn't been knocking down doors. He's lucky Jerry was dumb. Yeah, I mean, I think there's things that, just like every GM, I think there's things that Goody has done very well. I think there's things specifically this offseason that he has not done well. I think for this offseason in particular, I do think the Micah trade is covering a lot of other things that have not gone great for Goody this offseason. He's the one that sort of set the level of urgency. And then, Nate Hobbs and Aaron Banks have not come anywhere near being what you expected them to based on the contracts that you gave out. And then adding on top of that, the draft class, Matthew Golden. And I don't think that's necessarily good. I think Matthew Golden's a really good player. I talked about this today on Twitter. Matthew Golden's still my highest graded wide receiver right now. Christian Watson's my highest graded per play, and he's going to probably take over that number one spot this week. But Golden is a really talented player, and I think it's more up to Matt and this offense to try to figure out a way to utilize him better. But if you look at this draft class, you're not getting anything out of Belton. You're not getting anything out of, for the most part, out of Savion Williams. I get he had a big catch last week and has been their kick returner, but it's not like he's a dynamic playmaker for them right now. I know there's been some injuries, right? The Colin Oliver and John Williams things just sucked. It is what it is. But, Barron Sorrell is a fine rotational piece. Warren Brinson is a fine rotational piece, but you're not getting, Micah Robinson's no longer on the team. You're not getting a lot of ROI from your draft class or your free agent class so far this season. And that's a huge disappointment for, again, a team that you were thinking maybe one or two pieces away. You go through a full draft. You're hoping that you get one player that can come in and impact you right away from the draft. I mean, he's done a great job of that lately. This year, it has not been the case. And then in free agency, again, this has been one of the best teams and best GMs in the league in utilizing free agency to find good players. And so far this year, again, Nate Hobbs and Aaron Banks have not lived up to that expectation either. So I do think that there are some things that are getting covered up by the Micah Parsons trade, which was very cost, exorbitant, right? Like you gave up a huge cost. You do that trade 100 times out of 100. Don't get me wrong, but 2 first-round picks, highest paid defensive player in football. That's a big time addition to your team. You just wish that Aaron Banks, Nate Hobbs, in their draft class were adding a little bit more value to this team right now. My Endless Void, like the picture, by the way, and thank you so much for becoming a brand new YouTube member. Appreciate you a ton. All right, where do we leave off here? To 51 of the 53 Packers, Jordan Love and Micah are balling. You do your jobs and they can carry this team to the Super Bowl, play good ball, and this can happen. Fair enough, John. I think there are some other players that are playing well as well. Evan Williams, Edgerrin Cooper, we talked about. Josh Jacobs, Tucker Kraft was obviously playing amazing before injury. Christian Watson's been playing amazing since coming back from injury. So there are others too, but yes, Micah and Jordan have been the stars of the offense and defense, respectively. Would you rather save Jacobs for the Detroit game? Also, Kraft is better than Laporta, and losing Kraft is more hindering to the pack than Detroit losing Laporta. I said what I said. I think they're different types of tight ends, and I think they're both super important. If somebody wanted to say Laporta was better, I don't know that I'd have it in me to make a huge argument against it. I have no issue with saying Kraft is better. I'm not going to make an argument against that either. They're 2 of the upper echelon top 5 tight ends in the league, in my opinion, and losing both of them really hurts both teams. I do agree with you that I think it hurts Green Bay more than it does hurt Detroit, but they're both phenomenal players, and it's going to be a huge loss for both. To me, I don't know that you're going to be able to hold Josh Jacobs out of this game. Just hearing what he said and the fact that he's looked good. This is a purely medical decision. That's all it is. It's not, I want to save him for the next game. If I'm going to medical and I'm saying, is there risk of re-injury? Yes, he's not playing. No, we're good. And then I should say, then we get to the next question. What percentage is he at? Is he going to be, good? Is he going to hurt the team by playing out there? No. All right, then we're moving on. We're continuing forward. If he's going to hurt the team because he's just, at 40% of himself, all right, then we're going to save him and go to the next game. But to me, this is strictly a medical decision. And if he's good to go and there's, even 80% of Josh Jacobs and he's not hurting the team and there's no risk of injury or re-injury, or there's always risk of injury, but you know what I mean? Then I'm playing him. I'm not saving him for anything. You could save him for Detroit, lose to Minnesota because you didn't have Josh Jacobs, then lose to Detroit with Josh Jacobs, and now you're 0-2 in those games. You could play him against, Minnesota, pick up that win, and then, maybe he can't go against Detroit because you played him against Minnesota, but again, maybe you would have lost that game anyway. Maybe you would have won the game anyway. I think that's a foolish game to play sometimes. And to me, it's just a purely medical decision. Do I think it's fair to question Green Bay's medical decisions based on some of the stuff we've seen over the past couple of years? Absolutely. Question away, and hopefully they get it right. But I have no ability to say Josh Jacobs should or shouldn't play when I don't have the medical report in front of me. And even if I did, I probably wouldn't know how to read it anyway, right? So, yeah, I just hope they make the right decision with him one way or the other. Ben, go Pack Go. Thanks for being here. So one more question. Hafley defended Gary's press snaps as a result, pressure/snaps as a result of not forcing the other team into consistent passing situations. Thoughts? I really hope this Minnesota game is where it all comes together. I think that the snap thing, again, is not a huge issue to me if he plays well in the snaps that he's out there. I think it's important to remember he's playing solid football. It's not bad football from Rashawn Gary. He's helping the team. He's a net positive. I think he's my 4th or 5th highest graded player on defense. He's not playing poorly. I really want to make that distinction. However, on the key plays, when they are in 3rd and 12, 3rd and 15, true pass rush situations, he is not coming through for them. That's where I need to see it take that step and see him make some of those big plays and just more consistently. He doesn't need to be another Micah Parsons, but I want to see him look like prime Rashawn Gary. I want to see the best version of him, especially with the advantages that he's getting because Micah's on the other side. So to me, the snap thing is fine. I don't care about it all that much. They've got the depth to rotate. I need to see him in on big plays, and I need to see him making impact plays when he is in there. Just haven't quite seen enough of that right now. Have you ever thought about doing something similar to Peter on Locked On Packers, where he does crossovers before each game with someone who covers the opposing team? I'd die to hear those. I have done some. We did one with Pittsburgh, right? Obviously, this week we did the Farrington Show, which is a pre-show with the Minnesota Vikings. I've done one in the past with the Jaguars. So in certain situations, I have people that I know that cover the team that I can go to. I have people who cover the Lions. We've done it with Rachel Hotmeyer. We've done it with Kentley Platty for the Lions. We've done it with Russell Brown for the Lions. So I have done it in the past. Sometimes it's just tough to put those things together and get time on the calendar, especially with all the shows I already have kind of going on and the interviews and things like that. So sometimes I have it, sometimes I don't. If I can get it, I do enjoy doing it, usually for that Saturday episode. But again, we did Farrington this week. I'm not going to get something out before Minnesota next week. I don't have a Bears person for the week after that, surprising as that is. But when I can do it, I certainly like doing it. There was a Giants person I reached out to. It just didn't work out. So from time to time, you'll see it, but it's not necessarily something that's going to happen every time for sure. What's the biggest challenge that I face doing Pack-A-Day? Finding enough time in the day. A lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, a lot of 5 to 6 hour sleep nights through the course of the year, and especially in season, sometimes less than that. Days after night games are, 5 in the morning bedtimes, 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning wake up calls. Just that's the biggest thing, is just finding enough time in the day. And then, doing all the other family stuff too, and bringing the kids to sports and things like that. So that's by far and away the toughest. Everything else is fun and enjoyable, and I love doing it. I just wish there was about an extra 10 to 15 hours in the day. Right now, I've already like wanted to be at a certain point of like my to-do list to today. And I've still got 12 things on my to-do list once we're done with the happy hour here. So just one of those things. Every time catches up with you really quick. And I know I'm not alone in that, but wish there was just a little bit more time in the day. I think despite challenges this offseason, defense is set up nicely to survive. Quarterback, wide receiver, running back will be fine. Yeah, I'm not. This team is. I know Justice is a little bit concerned about the team. This team will borrow from the future if need be. They're going to keep some of their own guys. They're going to add some pieces via the draft. I know they don't have a first round pick, but they'll add some pieces via the draft. Players will need to get better and step up. If this is a draft and develop team, you're going to need to see Jordan Morgan, Anthony Belton, and some players like that take a step next year. Warren Brinson, Nasir Stackhouse, Tyron Hopper, other players are going to have to step up and get those opportunities. But I mean, if Green Bay loses all of their free agents, right, releases Elton Jenkins and doesn't sign a free agent, doesn't use a draft pick, which we know is obviously not going to happen, but they're set pretty much everywhere except offensive line. Offensive line is the one thing that's going to take something, either resigning some of their own guys. So right now, if you're looking at it, with all those conditions true, Jordan Love at quarterback, Josh Jacobs at running back, every wide receiver except Romeo Doubs is still there. Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave at tight end. Your offensive line gets iffy really quick. We'll just put Jenkins there because he's technically under contract. Well, all right, let's not do that. So Jordan Morgan, Aaron Banks, Jacob Monk, Anthony Belton, Zach Tom is it's something like that as your starting five right now. Or yeah, I think it's probably something like that. That's the one position you're going to need to add to or make some tweaks with or re-sign some guys, etc. You still have Micah Parsons. We'll see what happens with Rashawn, but even if you still have Micah Parsons, LVN, Devontae Wyatt, Colby Wooden. You still have, at minimum, at worst, even if Quay leaves, which I really don't think Quay is going to leave, you would still have Hopper, McDuffie, and Cooper. You still have Nixon, Valentine, Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, Xavier McKinney, Brandon McManus, for better or worse, Daniel Whelan, and Matt Orzik. So you're going to have to fill in some spots. You're going to have to use the draft, hopefully get some picks right, bring in some value free agents, maybe some guys who are released, maybe re-sign a player or two. Certainly Quay Walker goes to the top of that list. They are still going to have a very good team, but some young guys are going to need to take a step, and Goody's going to have to be very smart with the value free agents that he gets and how he utilizes the draft. Might have to take a fourth and a third to move up, maybe get 2 second-round picks or something like that to get maybe some pieces that can help you a little bit sooner rather than later. Not sure you can utilize the same sort of draft and develop philosophy you normally like, but it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it, but they're still going to field a very, very good team next year. Really liked Pierre Strong as a prospect and in New England too. If Goody needs a spot for Lloyd, shouldn't hesitate to cut Wilson. Strong is really fast. I'm glad you brought this up, John. If and when Marshawn Lloyd comes back, I really, truly, wholeheartedly believe Emmanuel Wilson, Chris Brooks have nothing to worry about whatsoever. I do not believe either player is going anywhere. I know you like Pierre Strong. That's great. He can stay on the practice squad, get a call up if need be. I do not see any of their running backs going anywhere for the remainder of this season. Lloyd's going to have to come back first and prove that he's capable of playing. But to me, they will go with 4 running backs. They still have 2 kickers on the roster. They're going to have to, I know Jaden Reed coming back will probably take care of that at some point. But then they have like 8 wide receivers. Malik Heath is probably the next guy out. And then you probably add that Marshawn Lloyd in that situation if you need to take that spot. So to me, there is no danger of Chris Brooks nor Emmanuel Wilson getting cut at this point. I've seen that talked about by a couple people. I really don't think that's happening. Really, really don't think that's happening. It's not impossible, but I especially with not being able to trust Marshawn Lloyd to stay healthy, I think they'll rock with 4 running backs at that point in time. Yeah, we just talked about it. So obviously you were the one that asked the last question too, John. But yeah, same thing. Don't see that going anywhere. All right. If we do lose Malik Willis in the offseason and Fields gets released by the Jets, and if there is no real market for Fields, would you bring him in and see if you could work out him as a backup? Probably not, honestly. I understand the correlation between the two. It's not the worst idea in the world. Justin Fields has just become a runner. He's just a runner. He just can't throw the ball like a quarterback. Is there a way to weaponize Justin Fields? Sure. Do I think that Green Bay is the right team to utilize that when you're not willing to take, and rightfully so, Jordan off the field? No, I don't think so. I think they'll be creative in bringing in a backup. I don't think Malik Willis being gone is a foregone conclusion. I think they'll try to get him back, or at least have the conversations about it. But if he's not, they'll find somebody probably in that Malik Willis type of realm. I would honestly say that, and that you might say he's also just a runner. I could almost see them taking the shot at like an Anthony Richardson, like they did with a Malik Willis, and doing something like that, who's younger, team control, and maybe has still more upside, or at least believed upside. Whereas Justin Fields, you know exactly what you're getting. But yeah, I don't think it's Fields. I wouldn't hate it, but somebody's going to give Fields like an $8 million like backup deal or like weapon deal or something like that. I don't think Green Bay is going to be in the market for that type of player. Love listening in every day. Keep up the amazing work. How many offensive linemen need to go down before we see Chris Brooks taking snap at guard? A lot. But I do love Chris Brooks, and he's a hell of a blocker. Is the 14 false starts that Minnesota offensive line has incurred enough to get us to calm down on our offensive line a bit? No, asking for a friend. It is interesting. I don't think Green Bay's offensive line has played well enough. If you look at like the PFF grades or like the pass block win rates and the run block win rates for like ESPN and things like that, and any of that, like Green Bay is around like the 10th best offensive line. To me, that's not a commentary on Green Bay being the 10th best offensive line. It's the commentary of how bad offensive line. Look at Buffalo last night. Offensive line plays really bad throughout the NFL. It's always something that I need to remind myself of too, of like, we can look at something and be like, oh, this really doesn't look good. And then you sort of canvass the league a little bit and you're like, oh, actually they're above average. And Green Bay's offensive line is, even if they're not 10th or whatever that some of those rankings put them as, I think they're actually an above average NFL offensive line, probably 14th, 15th, somewhere in that range, which is crazy because I don't think they're very good collectively. And there's probably 18 offensive lines that are worse than them throughout the NFL. So those things are worth remembering. It's really tough to find. The Aaron Banks deal, people are going to hate forever, probably no matter what. But there's a reason they signed him to that deal. Like just finding good, solid, average offensive linemen, which he's been teetering around that range. He's had some good, some bad. But even just finding a solid, like 4th or 5th offensive lineman is really difficult to do. And that's why they give him that big deal to try to solidify that line a little bit more. Hasn't worked out. They're going to end up overpaying him. It's a little bit of a bummer. But if he would have been that player, and maybe he still can be, like I'm talking about, it's not the worst contract in the world, just because average to good offensive linemen are going to cost that much money because you can't find them. You just can't find them. So it's an interesting aspect, and it's something I have to kind of remind myself of at times as well. Jordan Love is the blank most physically talented quarterback in the league, first, second, third, etc. Oh man. I mean, this is a tough one. Like Anthony Richardson is a more physically talented quarterback. Jordan Love's way freaking better. Josh Allen's more physically gifted. Dolphins, Bills, Jets. I mean, is Justin Fields Justin Fields is probably a more physically gifted quarterback. Patriots, Drake May are probably pretty close. I would say May is in that conversation with Jordan Love, like very similar. You could argue maybe one way or the other. Rodgers, no. Burrow, probably not. Lamar Jackson's more physically gifted. And then, probably nobody on the Browns. Texans, Stroud, similar. Titans, Cam Ward, I would put Jordan Love a little bit above that. I would put him over Lawrence. And then, like I said, Anthony Richardson, probably. Daniel Jones is actually an interesting conversation, but we'll put Jones below. Broncos, Chiefs, Mahomes is. Knicks, I won't put Knicks ahead of that. Raiders, no. And then what? Raiders, Broncos, Chiefs, Chargers, Herbert, similar. So we'll just say tied with Herbert. Dak, again, similar. Hurts is probably a little bit more physical, but again, do you want to do the arm talent too? Again, similar to Jordan. Commanders, Jaden Daniels is more physically gifted. And then Giants, Dart is probably pretty similar as well. So then what? Bears, Caleb Williams is probably, I mean, he's fast as hell, can escape everything, has probably better arm talent. So yeah, Caleb, I'm going to put ahead of him. McCarthy, no. Goff, no. Saints, no. Buccaneers, no. Let's see. Panthers, no. And then Falcons, no. Seahawks, no. 49ers, no. Rams, no. Although Stafford, just pure arm talent alone, you could argue, I guess. But then Murray, yes. So he's 10th, tied with some other players. There's a lot of really physically talented quarterbacks. But again, Anthony Richardson and Justin Fields are on that list. All right, do with that what you will. Do I want Anthony Richardson or Justin Fields as more, as a better quarterback? Hell no. He's a really fantastic quarterback. Rank him where you will. I'm super glad he's the quarterback of the Packers. Wiley will be tight end 1 before the end of the year. Book it. It's not the boldest take in the world. When you have 3 bad tight ends, you're likely to cycle through and just see if some crap sticks at some point in time. I want to see 6'11" personnel with Kennard, Wiley, Watson, Wicks, and Jacobs. Fun concepts possible against nickel. Can toast base personnel through the air. So that is actually, I don't know how you actually identify that, because the 6 is for the offensive line, but you don't really have a number for that. So I guess you're doing, like, in that situation, you're in a 11 personnel, but just Kennard's at tight end. So you're technically just in 11 personnel, but as a 6th offensive lineman. Vikings get Kelly back this week. Green Bay beat up 17 guys on IR to start the week. I'm sure Matt's discipline team will take enough bad penalties and get more of Rich's poor special teams to keep it close. Hopefully not, Omer. Hopefully not. Let's see. Matt, year 7 is now 3-4 in the playoffs. Your GM has given you a talent-loaded roster. What are you going to do with Matt, the 4th best coach in his own division now, making bad teams look great? Yeah, I disagree with a lot of that, Omer. I don't think he's the 4th best coach in the own division, although it's a stacked division of coaches for sure. Maybe he's 4th. All 4 are really, really good. But yeah, I don't think he's taking good teams and making them bad, or other bad teams and making them look great. I think that he's got a lot to prove the rest of this year with what's a good football team. He needs to, at minimum, make the playoffs and likely at least win a game, just to kind of get things going, at least in a direction that it needs to be. Anything less than that, there's going to be a lot of questions, but it's a really interesting litmus test for the remainder of the year to see what this exact team does. Just please catch the effing ball this Sunday. Please, my cold, dead, shriveled black heart can't take it anymore. Pokey, I'm with you. Does this team need to raise its floor or ceiling? Both. Jordan Love needs to show more maturity, not throwing absolutely bonehead. Omer, what's going on today, bud? You go take a nap. Omer, go take a nap. You're on timeout. Also, we can please stop the throws on 3rd and longs. Last week, defense was a train wreck on 3rd downs. Need to get off the field quicker and stop those super long drives. Can we please stop them on 3rd and longs? Yes. Defense needs to be better, especially in those 3rd down and long situations. 3rd and 12, 3rd and 8, anything 3rd and 7 or more. I really need to see the defense get off the field. And what I am not, and I talked about this, I think it was with Nagler ahead of the season. I don't want to see a defender on 3rd and 7 when the player is stopped a yard short and it ends up being a 4th and 1. The player's holding up the fist and being like, we held him, we got him, 4th down. Job's not done. Welcome to modern NFL. It's a 4-down league. And if you on 3rd and 7 allow 6 yards, you might as well have just given them the 1st down more often than not. So even if it's a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 15, if you have 1 less yard, right, and put them at 4th and 1, even 4th at 1.5, maybe even 4th and 2, job's not done. You still have work to do. And Green Bay's been bad in those 4th down situations, at least as of late. So yeah, 3rd and long and 4th down situations, get off the damn field. Totally agree. Jace, but Jace for sure. I think Musgrave, even just his first year, probably outperforms anything that Jace did in his career, but it's not by a ton at the moment. Dobbs has outperformed everyone, yet people are still talking about Watson's potential 4 years in laughing out. I disagree with this one, Whalers. You could maybe take the accumulate. Watson's playing at a different level than Dobbs right now. Dobbs has struggled the last 2 weeks. I have a negative grade, very slightly, negative like 0.05 on Dobbs for the year. In like 4 weeks, Watson's already at like a +2. Golden's at like a +2. Reed is in the positive. Wicks is in the positive. Dobbs is like low key, in my opinion, been actually kind of disappointing this year, especially in a contract year. So no, given the choice between Watson and Dobbs right now or in the future, sign me up for Watson 100 times out of 100. In fact, I actually think that I think it's time for both parties, Dobbs and the Packers. Like, I think the free agency thing is going to be good for both sides. I think this team needs to live with Reed, Golden, and Watson, and then Kraft and Jacobs going into the future. That's not to say Dobbs is a bad player. That's not to say they don't need him right now. They really do. I hope he steps it up and crushes it the remainder of this year. But no, I think Dobbs is like, I don't know, wide receiver 4 on this team if everyone's healthy. I would probably put it Watson, Reed, and you could switch those if you wanted to, but Watson and Reed, and I would go Golden, Dobbs, and then Wicks maybe right behind Dobbs, or if you wanted to change those 2 around as well, I would. But I think Dobbs has something to prove the rest of this year for sure. Andy, I heard someone say that if the Packers and Vikings were to swap coaches and play calling, both teams would be performing better. I was curious to get your opinion on that. Thanks, and go Pack Go. It's an interesting concept. I don't hate it. I do think O'Connell would have this offense playing very, very well in Green Bay. I think O'Connell's like, if you give him something good, he's going to make it kind of great. I think he would do really well with this offense and this quarterback and everything. I think, I think Flores would be really fun with this defense as well. I think just some of the exotic stuff he would throw, it'd be some risk reward stuff. I think they could work. And I think for Minnesota, I think Matt's proven that, like, I don't know, give me any random quarterback and backup and whatever. And like, I'm still going to be able to find a way to be successful in the league. And they would probably be raise their floor a little bit as well. I think actually Jeff Hafley would do well with Minnesota's defenders as well. So I think Van Ginkel and Grenard would give him a really good 1-2 at defensive end. And he has Redmond's playing great at defensive tackle. I could see it. I could see it. I'm still happy that, Green Bay is where they're at. I like, what Jeff's doing on defense overall. I still like what Matt's done overall in his career, but it's an interesting concept, Steven. It's an interesting concept. All right. Here we go. Go Pack Go. Thank you for doing these happy hours, Andy. Such a unique experience and super thankful. William, appreciate that a ton. Cora Smith, do your Packers credentials give you access to press boxes in away stadiums? Obviously, it would cost you to travel there, but wondering if you'd even have access. Yes. I could go to any game with the press pass that I have. So that's the big thing. Even the home games, I do have to like sort of battle of like doing the pre and post game show right before and after of, the away games, because I can do them right before and after. It's like a huge benefit. And when I'm at the home games, the pregame show, usually like Ross Uglum is going to do the pregame show this week. And then the postgame show I'm going to do as soon as I get home, which is, usually like an hour and a half after the game is done, which isn't quite as immediate. So there's a lot of advantages to actually kind of, for me personally, not being at the game. And then of course I would have to pay travel, hotel, everything like that. And then I'm at the game, I'm at an away stadium, and then I'd have to go back to a hotel and then record from a hotel and bring all my equipment with me. Like it's just not worth it. It's absolutely not worth it. So could I, from like a time to time, if like I wanted to go to like the Vikings game in the press box and drive there and, do something like that? Sure, I could. I haven't yet, but I could. And I have thought about maybe doing some stuff like that. But for the most part, usually for me, and that's just like when I talked about like the NFL draft was in Green Bay, and I didn't get to go. I was here because this is really where I kind of need to be. By the way, slight spoiler. I've been thinking and planning and plotting and doing a bunch of stuff to figure out a cooler backdrop behind me. I have it. It's freaking awesome. I have plans being put together for it. I talked to somebody that is going to be able to do what my vision entails. And if it works out the way that I want it to work out, the backdrop is going to be like, honestly, I think it has the ability. I don't want to like overhype it, but I think it has the ability to be the coolest backdrop of like any like YouTuber. Like that might be over aggressive, but it'll be awesome if it works out the way that I want it to. So I'm like super geeked up about that. Probably if it gets done, we're probably talking at the very earliest, probably playoffs, Super Bowl time. At the very latest, we're talking probably before the draft. But if it works out, I'm very excited about it. But yes, it usually just works best for what I do in covering the team to be here and, being able to talk to you guys and have all the lighting and everything like that. So it is a bummer that I can't do a little bit more of that, but I do have access to, yes. Andy, the answer is probably both, but what do you think? Jordan Morgan needs to improve upon more technique or adding strength? I always think technique can cover for a lot. I think it's harder for strength to cover for those things. So I would say technique is 1A, but adding some, my favorite functional strength, I think could go a long way as well. Do you feel like Edgerrin Cooper's added weight has slowed his play down this year? Or could it just be the coach at linebacker? Just haven't seen him make the impact plays. We talked about this a little bit at the onset, but I think to me, it's just what they're asking him to do a little bit more than anything else. I just think they're not using him quite as aggressively as they did last year. I think they can do a little bit more of that, but he still looks fast as hell to me. And I still think he's making an impact out there on the field. I hope so. I hope Rodgers will still own the Bears. Packers could use a win by Aaron, and a Bears loss would not be the worst thing in the world, to say the least. All right. Omar, you're still on timeout. There's a lot more to do with it than that. All right. We're talking to Omar there. Are you on board with Justice's whole roster decay? We talked about that a little bit. I'm not. I understand his overall concept of it is, I don't necessarily disagree with, of like, I kind of am of the belief, and I think maybe this is where he's trying to get to. In order to like not decay, you can't just stay status quo. You have to like add something to your team too. And I think it's going to be very difficult for Green Bay to do anything outside of maybe if they really hit on their second or third round pick or something like that to add anything of real significance to this team in 2026. They're not going to have a first round pick, and they don't have the money to go out and spend anything aggressive. And even if they do, even if they find the money to go out and spend something aggressive, it probably is going to cost them. And we know pretty much guaranteed Elton Jenkins being released, maybe trading Rashawn Gary and opening up some money that way, where it's more of like a trade of assets, which they might need to do. And I think they probably really should look at doing something like that. But we talked about earlier, I think young players will step up. I think this still has a really great base of a team. They'll be a year older, a year wiser. And I think Goody will find some value free agents. And I think he'll, hopefully hit on at least one player in the draft that can kind of help them next year. So I don't think it's as doom and gloom as maybe Justice is making it out to be. And I do think they're well aware of the window that they're in and will borrow and start taxing the future and things like that. But I do think for an overall feel of like, you're probably going to lose a little bit more from this team in 2026 than what you're going to gain from the draft and free agency to help you in 2026. And I think if sometimes, even if you're taking just a slight tick of a decrease, you're kind of staying status quo where other teams are getting better. They're adding draft picks. The Rams are going to have 2 picks, including one potentially in the top 5, right? Now, maybe they lose Stafford. There's layers to this, right? But I think overall, that's maybe where he's getting at a little bit more. I still think Green Bay is going to have a phenomenal team, and they'll find ways to be creative with it to add some players that they need to help fill out the roster. How would you rank the wide receiver? We did that already. There we go. We did that. I guess if you want me to continue to go after Wicks, I think I left off with, then I would say Savion, and then I actually am more of the belief that I probably would play Melton over Malik Heath, which is what Green Bay did, and everyone got upset over it. I would play Melton over Heath as well. I do not think he plays on Thanksgiving. I think it's going to be the Bears game if I had to guess. You can watch all the football you want. I'm just saying you're a little cranky today, Omer. Appreciate that, Royd. They've probably put more on Cooper's plate this year than last year, and there's more that he's processing, working on. He'll continue to improve. I agree with that, Ben. I agree with that. Jano, good to see you. Happy Friday. Over under 300 passing yards for Love. I'll go under. Just the way that Green Bay likes. I hope it's over. Actually, I don't hope it's over. If it's over, that means they probably needed to pass a lot. So I hope it's under. I think it'll be under. We'll go like a solid 260, then a good performance, 2 touchdowns, maybe 3 touchdowns. Hopefully Green Bay gets a big win. I think they will. I don't know where this is coming from. O'Hare's the worst airport in the country. I do fly O'Hare. I haven't had I'm not even going to say it. I'm not going to jinx anything. Let's see. Andy, I may be wishful thinking, but I'm set on the idea that the offense is saving something for the second half of the year and will unleash it this week or next. It's a fun concept. I don't think they are saving anything up. I don't think they are in a position. If they were 9-1 or something, okay, maybe they're saving some stuff. They've had some must-win games. They really wanted to beat Philly. I guarantee you that. They didn't want to lose to Carolina. They really needed to beat New York. I don't think they're in a position to save stuff. I'll just put it that way. Ooh, Master Bojangles with the run the table reference. All right, let's go, Master Bojangles. It's on you if they don't. I'm just kidding. Hopefully they do. That'd be awesome. I'm okay with that, a loss in the regular season still. I don't think they're going to run the table between now and the Super Bowl, right? So they might need to get at least one loss still in the regular season. Let's just beat the Vikings. Let's put it that way. Let's just beat the Vikings first. Love Jacobs, but do you think we overstate his talent? He's near the bottom of the league in efficiency rates. Seems like a very high floor, low ceiling runner and below the elite. I think we're just forgetting what he did in 2024. He was fantastic in 2024. I don't think he's degraded in any real way. I do think he lacks an explosive trait, which is a bit of a bummer, which is, I think, where they're really missing Marshawn Lloyd. I think that 1-2 punch would have been perfect. You've got the grinder that you need, and he's just so talented in finding yards where they're not. And then I think Marshawn Lloyd being that explosive change of pace would have really helped this team. I think that's what they're really missing. I think Jacobs is really good. I think they do miss having a runner like Marshawn Lloyd that could take it the distance and or just create a speed element that maybe everything's stonewalled up front, but he can bounce it outside and pick up 10 yards that way. I think it's understated how much they miss Lloyd. I don't think it's overstated how valuable Josh Jacobs is. Let's see. Look at Saquon Barkley. Philly's offensive line is taking a step back, and he doesn't look quite the same. Our offensive line has been awful at run blocking. Where Jacobs is at with yards and touchdowns is impressive. I agree with that, Ben. Drops by the offense, drops by the defense. Good to finally see this team playing some complimentary football. All right, Jeff, that's not bad. That's not bad. All right, we're leaving off at 3:17 here. I just want to see if there's any other super chats. What's one bad habit you see the Pack do every game? I would just say the one trend that we've seen for a very long time, I don't know if you can call it a habit, is just in general poor special teams play. That's the one that continues to happen over and over and over and over and over and over again for like a decade now. So I like anything else of like drops, but you don't see drops every game. You know, the pre-snap penalties, you see that a little bit too much, but it's not every, like, I don't think they had one last game, knock on wood. So it's not necessarily any one thing, but special teams has been an issue for a very long period of time. Jack, thank you for the super chat as well. Appreciate you guys. All right, let's get our sleeper picks in for this Sunday. We're going Colts, Chiefs. I got 3 for you. Travis Kelce, fewer than 49.5 receiving yards. Kelsey's not quite having the same season. He's been a little bit better as of late, but I think the Colts are really going to try to shut him down. Patrick Mahomes, fewer than 271.5. I do think Mahomes is going to maybe try to win this on his own. The Colts defensive backfield isn't great, but I think Charvarius Ward's coming back this week. Either way, I expect them to have to make, or that they're going to try to make Kansas City balanced in this game and not let Patrick Mahomes beat them. And we just haven't seen this high-flying Kansas City offense like we have in years past. Jonathan Taylor, fewer than 88.5 rushing yards. Kansas City is going to have to win this game. In order to do so, they're going to have to control Jonathan Taylor. Maybe Taylor makes it up a little bit in receiving yardage, screenplay, something like that, but I think they'll hold him under 88.5 rushing yards. Best thing is you can get a 100% match up to $100 using code PACKADAY. You get a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper for details. Available in over 25 states nationwide. So check it out as soon as you get a chance. Good for every game. Noon games, 3 p.m., 7 p.m., Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. So check it out as soon as you have a chance. All right, back to this. Nicholas. If I remember correctly, I think Wyatt struggled after last year's injury. This year is looking too similar. You're not wrong, Nicholas. I don't know if it's an injury thing. I don't know if he just wears down through the course of the season, but it's been a trend where we see really great Devontae Wyatt and we're all like, breakout year. Look at Devontae. He looks amazing. Then it's usually an injury and he comes back and he doesn't look anything the same. It's a very similar story from last year. You're 100% correct on that. All right. I think it was like, around like 314. Oops. Why were we so good at beating cover 2 zone in 2023 and not now? Different defenses. I think partially, I think defense has just evolved on how they play Green Bay. And I think they spent a lot of time kind of watching Green Bay, Matt LaFleur. These offenses like McVay, Shanahan, and LaFleur have been very powerful and, I wouldn't say unstoppable, but they've been in vogue throughout the league. So more teams are running the same concepts. Defenses have gotten better against defending them. I just think it's up to Green Bay to sort of evolve the offense a little bit more. I don't think it's anything that they're necessarily doing different. I think defenses are just playing Green Bay a little bit differently right now than they were in 2023. This has been right around the time where Whelan has slowed down at punter. Nice that through November, he's still been a complete stud. Yes. Well said, Ben. In part of that's just weather, right? Weather gets colder. You play more in Green Bay, maybe in Chicago at the end of the year. And it's tough to punt in those conditions, but he played in tough conditions this past week in New York and he crushed it. So good observation on your part to be like, this is where we usually see a decline. And he showed no signs of that last week. Why are we not seeing as much production in Musgrave as we should? Is he not getting as much from his practice habits? I just don't think the skills have translated to an NFL level. And I think, at the end of the day, we talk about the traits that he has, right? What are the traits that he has? Tall and fast. Tall and fast. Is he good after the catch? No, he's not good after the catch. Is he a good blocker? No. Is he a good route runner? No. Okay. He's tall and fast. That does not make you a good NFL tight end. especially when you're not a good blocker, not a good route runner, not a good run after the catch guy. Can you utilize tall and fast? Yes, you can utilize tall and fast. How? Well, where you want to see tall and fast is seam routes. Defenses have gotten very good at defending seam routes. You know who else is fast? Safeties and linebackers in the modern NFL too. They're sticking with those players through up the seam. Deep crossers. That's where I'd like to see play action, intermediate short crosser, Musgrave flying across the field. And I think that's where you have the ability to take advantage and utilize his skill set a little bit more. But that's where you want to see him win. Deep down the field, again, deep seam routes, and then, intermediate and deep crossing routes. If you can take advantage of him there, great. But that's where his skill set lies. Screens, no, because he's not good after the catch. Little flat plays, no, because he's not good after the catch. Can you put him out wide? No, because he's not a good route runner. He's tall and fast. That doesn't get you as much as you might think it would in today's NFL. All right. Well, we've seen Richardson throw absolute dimes deep down the field. Not really have seen Fields do that much in the NFL as much. Not lately, no. Early on, maybe, but it feels like it's almost gotten worse with Fields. We need to make JJ run to his left side while Gary contain and bull rush with the tackle as Parsons and Cooper go hunt, and Wyatt needs to come with it. Yeah, make him throw left. He has not been able to throw left at all. I'm sure they're going to be well aware of that. Keep Willis. He's a bit more than just a runner. Throws a better deep ball than 10. Disagree with that, but he's been really, really good. And if you could keep him, that'd be great. I think he's the best backup quarterback in the league, or at least in the conversation. Don't think Willis is making that second touchdown to Watson. Yeah, I don't think so either. Josh Allen got his ass kicked last night. The Texans got active. I just want to say, Jordan Love's going to have a game like that at some point. Hopefully not this year. Hopefully never. But at some point, he's going to have like a 150-yard, 0 touchdown, 3 interception game. And that's not exactly Allen's line last night. But he's going to have a game like that. Because guess what? Aaron did. Brett did. Josh Allen did. Patrick Mahomes did. Peyton Manning did. Tom Brady did. All the best quarterbacks have bad days. It's not always just on the quarterback either. A lot of times, like we saw last night, the Bills offensive line, or in this case, the Texans defensive front, played a massive role in that. If Jordan Love had that game last night that Josh Allen had, people would be saying it's time to start Malik Willis. People would be saying he's clearly not the answer at quarterback. And it's the most ridiculous thing ever. Josh Allen's phenomenal, and he had a bad game last night, in large part due to how well the Texans played on defense. I'm preemptively striking here to say at some point he's going to, and it's okay. It's going to be fine. He's a fantastic quarterback. And at some point you just have a rough day at the office. It's going to happen at some point, just like it happens to everyone. And we saw it last night with Josh Allen. Tough to win in this league. It's tough to play consistent football. Again, all things considered, Jordan Love's had a hell of a season so far. And I think we're going to see that continue moving forward. Wiley was a nice ad for sure. Yeah, he's fine. He was one of my lowest 3 graded Packers this week. Had a bad holding penalty, ran into Emmanuel Wilson. Actually, it may have been him and Wilson more colliding on a play. I thought there was still more out there for Wiley. The touchdown, I think everyone's just reacting to the touchdown play, which, quite frankly, Omar, you or I or anyone could have done that. Watson completely picks off the player. He's just chilling in the back of the end zone and just has to catch it. So it's a nice play. He gets the touchdown, but I need to see a little bit more from him before I'm willing to crown him, tight end 1, or say he should start getting a bunch of snaps in the offense. Caleb has better arm talent. Caleb definitely has better arm talent than Jordan, for sure. He's got a better arm. It's not just on the Bills line. Some of those sacks were on Allen. That's true too. Jack, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. Let's see. Andy, keep up the great work. Looking back, would you rather have Gary in that trade instead of Kenny Clark? I mean, first of all, I don't think the Cowboys would have done that. They were dead set on a defensive tackle. I'd probably rather still have Gary on the team than Kenny Clark. I'd rather probably have the defensive tackle, maybe, but I think Gary is better than Kenny Clark at this point of their respective careers. So here's the thing. A lot of teams are playing this similar brand of defense. Joe Barry playing this bend but don't break defense was a fine concept in and of itself. He didn't do a great job of actually running that brand of defense. Jeff Hafley, for the most part, couple hiccups notwithstanding, has run a successful bend but don't break defense. Joe Barry didn't. That's the big difference. The concept is very in vogue throughout the NFL. It's not just Joe Barry or, Jeff Hafley that are running the style. Jeff Hafley, I think, has run a better version of it both last year and this year. Although I still think there's things that Jeff Hafley can do a much better job with to make it a little bit more efficient, even going forward this year. Let's see. Packers need to show more man-to-man coverage. They need to be careful. They don't have man-to-man corners. Javon Bullard cannot match up man-to-man in the slot. Although he's been better at it, it's still not what you usually want. Keyshawn, if he's on a number one wide receiver in man-to-man, it's not ended great. If they have a true number one wide receiver, Valentine can probably hang, but it's tough. And when they have called it, it hasn't gone great for Green Bay a lot this year. So you just need to be careful. Do you need to use it as a changeup from time to time? Yes. Do I want a ton more of it? I probably don't. Mina Kimes had an interesting stat on her show. Packers defense is 29th in EPA per play if the quarterback gets the ball out of their hands within 3 seconds, and a lead if more than that. Really not sure how Hafley can find answers there. Yeah, it might just be, again, being a little less afraid of giving up the big play and just bringing those corners up a little bit more, forcing the quarterback to hold on to the ball. It's frustrating sometimes when you see Micah or some of these defenders get there in 2.5 seconds and the ball's out of the hands already, or 2 seconds and the ball is out of the hand. But again, you're trying to prevent the long plays and the touchdowns. I get it. I understand it, but might need to just change things up a little bit, bring those corners up, have them play a little bit more aggressive. And yeah, maybe you're a little bit more susceptible to a play deep down the field, but you might also create a lot of havoc while doing so. Maybe they connect on one, but maybe you force a fumble or get a pick or, get 3 or 4 more sacks throughout the course of the game. That might be a trade-off. If Green Bay gives up, a 60-yard touchdown, but the trade-off is, 4 more sacks and a forced fumble or something like that and a turnover, I'd probably take that trade. But it's an interesting conversation for sure. Not only is a 6-yard gain on 3rd and 7 basically a first down, but it's basically 90 more seconds off the clock. In some analytical senses, it's starting to feel even worse than letting up a first down. I will for sure on like a second down. If it's like a 2nd and 10 and you allow 9, there's a part of me that just wants to give do a false start, give them the first down, start it over. 2nd and 1, you're giving them 2 free plays and then you're allowing them to convert on 4th and 1, even if they don't get anything. I would probably rather have just the new set of downs, if I'm being honest. Just don't want to see Watson go anywhere. I love Tay, obviously, but to me, Jordy Nelson was the epitome of a Packers wide receiver. I think Watson is next in that mold as far as character, teammate, etc. Not sure if I'm willing to put him in the Devontae Jordy category yet, but I'm really happy that Goody was able to get him on that extension for a 1-year extension. And then, probably will have the opportunity to prove himself next year. And if he's cooking like this next year, they probably get a longer term deal done. Andy, do you expect Aaron Rodgers to collect his rent and beat the Bears if he plays this Sunday? I think the Bears would. No, I think I picked the Steelers. I'm going to pick the Steelers. I think the Steelers find a way to win that one with either Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers. Bold take. Steelers win that one no matter what. Packers win a low-scoring game. All right, I could see that. When doing grading, do you track grades on a slot out wide or pass run when you're grading? No, I don't. Honestly, it takes me so freaking long just to grade every player and every play. I don't have the ability to chart it too as to whether what position they were playing. Were they outside or inside? Were they slot or outside corner? Was it a run play or a pass play? It's just it gets too much at that point. I don't have the time to do that, unfortunately. How hard are you going to try to recruit Ziggy to be a Packers fan on Sunday? Well, I'm going to see him Saturday. I'm going to go to their live event. I'm going to hopefully be there for the first 15 minutes or so. So I won't be able to stay. I'm going to see Book of Mormon in Appleton on Saturday night, which I'm excited for. But I am going to go see those guys for a little bit on Saturday. I'll see what I can do. I'll see if I can make something happen. Let's see. Other than a phone, what do you need for a remote show? I mean, it's just less quality then, right? I can have a phone and set it up and I could have a little microphone on it. I don't think the quality is quite as good. And even then, again, I can do it right after, but then I don't have the ability to kind of take notes and things like that. And as much as I would like, when I'm on the road and things like that, I could do it. Again, the bigger thing is just the travel and again, having to pay expenses for travel and staying overnight and things like that. All right. Let's see. Why does it seem like the Lions struggles and 6-4 record gets overshadowed by the national media compared to Green Bay? I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that, Green Bay, Detroit, Buffalo, KC are all in very similar situations. Super Bowl expectations, really Super Bowl or bust type seasons. And all four of them are Ravens too. Ravens. Did I say Ravens? Ravens, Chiefs, Bills, Packers, Lions. I would put all five of those in a very similar category. Super Bowl expectations, and everything's been a struggle. Everything's been difficult. That's the type of year it's been in the NFL. And I think all of those five teams should be grouped pretty similarly. And Green Bay is ahead of what? For sure, of all of them in the standings? Let's see. Yeah. If I told you going into the year, the Packers would be ahead of the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Lions in the standings, all of them, you would have probably felt pretty good about your football team. And again, they're 6-3-1. They're 6-3-1. They're okay right now. Do they need to get better? Yes, but it's hard out there for an NFL team. It really is. We should have known right away. We fence is the single most cringeworthy, dumbest phrase that I think I've heard in the history of the NFL. We used to be a real society, and we used to shame people correctly for using terms like we fence. We need to wake up as a society. Friends don't let friends say we fence. It's the most embarrassing thing from a Packers stand. Listen, if special teams is kicking off to an offensive lineman and having them almost return it for a touchdown, and this is we fence, give me special teams. I want special teams. I don't ever want to hear the word we fence ever again. It should have been a fireable offense on the spot. They should have. They hired Joe Barry, gave him a huge contract. He came in and said, we're going to call it we fence now. Matt should have said, I'm sorry. We appreciate you and we wish you the best of luck on your future endeavors, but we're going to be going in a different direction. Fireable on the spot. It's a ridiculous statement. It is so cringeworthy and dumb. Rant over. Was there a game or moment you knew it was time to move on from Aaron? And then was there a game or moment you knew Jordan was going to be the guy? I don't think that there was a specific game or moment that I thought it was time to move on from Aaron. And even at the end, it's never an easy decision to move on from Aaron. I said this for a long time at the end. This is going to sound really simplistic and stupid. It felt different when it felt like Aaron was no longer having fun. He no longer was doing the belt and running around, and like there was a time where Aaron felt like he lifted the entire team. Like no matter what was going on, that season where he brought him to the NFC Championship game against the Falcons where they got rocked, but like that was all just Aaron. That was literally all just Aaron. But it felt like he was constantly being able to uplift everything just because of his, almost like spirit and joy. And, again, doing the belt, running around, playing at an unbelievable level. And then it almost just felt like there was a page turn of like, everything around him, maybe was a degree of not what he wanted or decaying at some point, but it just felt like he lost his joy. It was like Shawn Michaels losing his smile. Like it just felt like he lost that. And instead of the belt and the lifting people up, it felt like it was the stares of death and just looking, mouthing over to the sideline how stupid a play call was, and just felt like everything was a chore for him. And I think that just kind of spread to the team. And for a little bit, it was like, he's probably right. Like he's probably not wrong. And then after a while, it just became like, I think it's bringing everything else down. It brought myself down of just like my enjoyment of the team at time, because it just felt like everything was miserable. And he may have had every right to be miserable, although I think at times we saw some of the stuff in New York. We see it at times in Pittsburgh as well. And then I think the exception was, I think it was 2020, maybe 2021, where he's doing he was the one who did the pumps first in the end zone, not the running back, not Dowdle, who did it against Green Bay. Rodgers was the first one. He was doing pumps in the end zone and felt like he was getting his swagger and his fun back, and he won MVP again, and they were going to the NFC Championship. And then, like by the time 22 came along again, it felt like the joy was gone. So yeah, to me, it was that. And as far as Jordan, I don't know that I have a moment with Jordan where I thought like, all right, he's arrived, but it was probably I take that back. It was the Cowboys game for sure. The Cowboys playoff game. It's like, yep, all right, we're good. He's the one. He's the franchise. I'm cool with this. Move forward with him. That was probably the game. So it was more of just a trend for Aaron, and for Jordan, it was more that Cowboys game was to me like real true proof of concept. Andy's my medicine. He finds hope in the Packers always. Not always, but I still think I think it's going to be a struggle for them to get where they want to go this year. I really do, which is disappointing. It sucks. It's frustrating, but a lot of season left. We'll see where it goes. Interesting. That's very early, Ben. That's very early, but he looked good in that game for sure. People love the Packers hat. Got the Packers sweatshirt too today. I see. I've always said like the Live Lucky hats are just super comfortable. If I can find a comfortable Packers hat that I actually like, I will wear it all the time. This one's pretty comfortable, and I do really like this one. So you'll probably see it a lot. I do not think it's possible to get Luigi's Pizza delivered to New Jersey. I'm sorry, Nicholas. Let's see. I want to make sure I hit every other super chat. Yep, we talked about that. Also, it'd be fitting if Willis was. I don't think Willis is the right fit for the Vikings. I don't think he'll end up in Minnesota. We'll see though. M.2, not enough fans appreciate what Joe Barry did to help us in the 2023 playoff run. It was his time to go, but I'll never pretend the man was a failure. Yeah, I think in that 3-game win streak, the end of 2023 was probably some of the better stuff that he did. I think that's probably fair. I think that's fair. I still think the overall tenure of Joe Barry in Green Bay was a failure. And I think they made a mistake by not going to Ejiro Evero rather than him when they initially made that hire. But there were moments, and I do think the end of 2023 was a good overall set of games for Joe Barry. All right. At least Wiley caught his touchdown and didn't drop it. Yes, I do appreciate that. That is true, Omar. It is a labor of love, though. I enjoy doing it. I liked hearing your updated total player grades so far this season. To make that Super Bowl run, you've said we need stars to play like stars. I'm wondering, is that a few grades at a positive 10 plus? Yeah, I think you probably need some in that realm. I think Kraft was probably playing pretty close to that level. Jacobs with a better offensive line, I think probably would have been playing at that level. Jordan was, Micah was. Those are probably your stars, and they maybe would have needed one more on defense to step up. Although I do think Evan and some of those players are playing really good football. Paul called a Toyota dealership and asked them to delay Toyotathon. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. I think I like these corners playing more aggressive anyway. Big play here or there, but but then line up and get another opportunity. Yeah, I don't hate that philosophy. I love Micah, but if you could go back, would you trade for Myles Garrett? The Garrett thing was not an option. They weren't willing to trade him by all accounts. I think Myles Garrett would have been on another team. There is a lot of rumors, by the way, that at the trade deadline, the Eagles offered 3 first-round picks for Myles at the trade deadline, and the Browns still wouldn't budge. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was some of the buzz I was hearing. So I don't think Myles was ever available. Even if both were available, it's a really interesting conversation due to age. Myles is better. Myles is just better. It's not by Myles, no pun intended. Okay, very much pun intended. But he's better. But he's also like 3.5, 4 years older than Parsons. So listen, I don't care. I love Micah. I'm super happy with him, and I'm thrilled that he's a Green Bay Packer still. All right, so it's not just cover 2. It's a blend of things. It's that teams are playing cover 2, a lot of too high safety. And it's not just that. It's just that at least 2, because they're playing a lot of cover 4, some cover 3, but at least 2 guys are staying deep at pretty much all times. That's number one. But it's not just that. The second thing is that for really one of the first times, usually when teams played too high safety in the past, you were able to run on it. It was a successful running play or running situation for you. And maybe they would play it in third downs, but they couldn't play it throughout the game because you were going to run the ball on them too easily. And now, really, for one of the first times, teams are finding ways to play too high safeties and still stop the run. That's sort of game changer number one. The other aspect is teams are not just playing, too high, shell or two safeties high, but again, they're playing a cloud coverage a lot of times, meaning there's at least two safeties high, but they're also dropping underneath players like linebackers to depth. And so even if you're going play action, they're not really buying your play action anymore because, again, they're having success for the most part stopping the run up front. So it's kind of this concept combined of like, okay, they're keeping their safeties and their defenders deep, and they're dropping their linebackers, and we can't run the ball. It's like, all right, well, that makes things very, very difficult. That's, to me, the bigger evolution. And that's where you better be able to either run the football or throw against some really difficult looks to throw against. Because before, it was this cat and mouse game of, all right, they're going to go too high safeties. We're just going to run the football. Oh, now they're dropping a guy in the box. Now we're going to throw the football. And now it's like, no, we're going to play two high safeties. We're going to drop linebackers, and you're not going to be able to run the football. It's like, oh, crap. Like, that's not ideal. And that's where defenses, to me, have gotten a little bit better. And part of it is due to, again, the Packers' offensive line not being good enough in that situation either. What are the odds next year they move Tom to left tackle? I don't know. I don't know. I still don't really need to see any movement with Zach Tom, I don't think, but it's an interesting conversation starter for sure. It really is. I feel like Gold Zone for Red Zone much better than Special Teams Alter Ego there. I like Gold Zone. Yes, Gold Zone's better for sure. I think the game against the Bears when he left with that injury and came back and let a comeback for the win, that was amongst the last times I felt energy from him. That was an awesome moment for sure. And he had moments for sure. And again, even after all of that, it's not easy to say goodbye to him because he was so freaking incredible the majority of the time. And as he rightfully stated, his down years are most quarterbacks' career years. It's not an easy decision. I felt they could have probably done it a year earlier. And I think in hindsight, maybe a year earlier would have been the way to go. But I think the timing was right when they did it. I think Jordan was ready when they did it. I think for the most part, they got that decision right. Cowboys playoff game, absolutely. But the comeback earlier in the year against the Saints, I was like, this is our guy moving forward. Yeah, to me, it was more cemented with that Cowboys game. I hope Chris Brooks gets more playing time. Again, he should be the third down guy. He just simply should be the third down guy. This is setting up for an Aaron Jones heartbreak. I hope that means that Aaron Jones is heartbroken because he didn't get a touchdown in Lambeau again. That's the heartbreak we're setting up for. Spree for all. Do you think Dobbs is targeted as much as he is because he's Jordan's safety blanket? All right. We need to have a conversation. All right. Just really quick. Now I have to think this through. There is no such thing as a safety blanket. Safety valve or security blanket. No, security blanket or safety valve. It's not a safety blanket. There's no safety blanket. Am I wrong in this? Maybe I'm wrong in this. I don't feel like there's a safety blanket. It's a safety valve or a security blanket, right? A safety blanket doesn't sound right to me. Do you think, maybe I'm wrong. Do you think the offense would be better and more explosive if Dobbs is removed, considering that there's a role for Romeo Dobbs? I think he needs to play a little bit better. He's kind of their possession guy. I do think he's a little bit of Jordan's. Now you're screwing me up. Security blanket, safety valve. He is a little bit of that. Or it's release valve. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But either way, I think this could be a more explosive offense with Golden, Reed, and Watson maybe in 2026, and with Kraft hopefully out there too. I don't think Micah's underperforming. If it is, it's because teams again are just dead set on keeping him out. All right. I'm not alone. Safety blanket's not a thing. I'm sticking with there's no such thing as a safety blanket. Do you also buy the narrative that defensive line talent has outpaced the offensive line talent? Yes. I do think there are much better defensive linemen out there than offensive linemen. And I think teams have identified finding freak athletes at defensive end and defensive tackle better than they have at finding, offensive linemen who are really, really good, that can play with good technique. So I do think that's a piece of it as well. Safety net, I will allow that as well. safety net, security, but yeah, we're not doing safety blanket. There's no safety blanket. Security blanket and safety valve are correct. I think he just combined them. All right. So I was right. So security blanket, safety valve, or safety net. Yes. No safety blanket. Regardless, Romeo has proved to have earned Love's trust, but the problem is he's been having some weird drops. Yes, he has. Again, fine player for the most part. They need a little bit more from him this year. Hopefully they get it, because I think he's a good player. He's in a contract year. He has the ability to go out and make some money. Hopefully he can do it the rest of the year. Ray, that's too long of a question to get to at the end of the chat here. I do have to get out of here. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to Luiges again. Thank you to Sleeper. Make sure you're checking them out, luigespizza.com, and find all those great deals in Sleeper. 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Again, terms and conditions apply. I'll see you guys all very, very soon. Tomorrow, conversation with Titletown Talks. It's an interesting one. You're gonna want to watch that one tomorrow. Also, Sunday morning, Ross Uglum live Q&A or live pregame show. And then I will be doing the live postgame show as well. And then we'll go from there. So I'll see you guys all very, very soon. Until next time. And as always, go Pack Go.